You've been lied to about time itself, and I can prove it. What if I told you that there's a hidden calendar that reveals exactly when your manifestations work and when they don't? And what if the people in power deliberately change the calendar you use to hide this from you? Before you click away, let me show you something that's going to blow your mind. And if this resonates, hit that subscribe button right now, because what I'm about to reveal has been suppressed for centuries. There used to be a map, not a physical map, but a time map that showed the cycles of manifestation energy throughout the lunar month. And every ancient culture knew about it. They built their temples around it. They timed their rituals by it. They manifested abundance, healing, and power using specific windows that this moon map revealed. Then the calendar changed. And suddenly, nobody could follow the map anymore. Here's what nobody's telling you. The calendar you use, the Gregorian calendar, was implemented in 1582. Pope Gregory XIII literally changed how humanity tracks time. And they told you it was to fix the drift in the Julian calendar, to align Easter properly. That's the official story. But here's what they don't mention. The old calendar systems, the ones that track 13 moon cycles instead of 12 arbitrary months, those calendars map directly onto natural manifestation windows. And the moment they changed it, you lost access to the code. But before we go deeper, you need to understand something critical. This isn't just about calendars. This is about frequency. Everything in the universe operates on frequency. Your thoughts, your emotions, your intentions, they all have a frequency. And the moon is a frequency amplifier. It's literally broadcasting electromagnetic energy that your body picks up whether you believe it or not. NASA has documented this. The moon creates a magnetosphere. It affects Earth's magnetic field. And your brain, your heart, your entire nervous system runs on electromagnetic impulses. You are literally a receiver picking up lunar frequencies every single moment. And here's where it gets insane. Different moon phases broadcast different frequencies. The new moon emits a different electromagnetic signature than the full moon. The waxing crescent operates on a different frequency than the waning crescent. And your cells, your DNA, your energy field, they respond to these frequencies automatically. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to understand it. It's happening regardless. But when you become conscious of it, when you deliberately align with it, you go from being a passive receiver to an active co-creator. That's the difference between people who manifest randomly and people who manifest consistently. Think about it. A lunar cycle is 29.5 days. 13 lunar cycles equal 364 days. Almost exactly one solar year. That's how the universe actually operates. 13 moons, not 12 random months with different numbers of days that make no logical sense. Who decided February gets 28 days? Who decided some months get 30 and others get 31? It's random unless you understand it was designed to disconnect you from the natural rhythm of manifestation. And let's talk about what happened to those 10 days. Because when they switched from the Julian to the Gregorian calendar, they didn't just change the structure. They erased 10 days. October 4th, 1582 was followed immediately by October 15th, 1582. 10 days just vanished. Gone. And they told people it was to correct the drift, to get the calendar back in sync with the solar year. But think about what that means energetically. 10 days of lunar cycle just deleted. 10 days of people's lives that suddenly didn't exist on paper. You don't think that created a massive disruption in the collective field? You don't think that was intentional? Because here's what they're not telling you. Those 10 days that were removed, they were specific days in a lunar cycle. They weren't random. And the removal of those days broke the synchronization between the calendar and the actual lunar phases. Before the change, dates and moon phases aligned predictably. After the change, that connection was severed. You couldn't look at a calendar date and know what the moon was doing. You had to track it separately. And most people didn't. Most people just forgot. And that's exactly what they wanted. The moon controls the tides. 70% of the earth is water. You are 70% water. The moon is literally pulling on your cellular structure every single day. And there are specific phases within each lunar cycle where manifestation energy is amplified, where the field is more receptive, where reality bends easier. But you can't access those windows because you're following a calendar that was specifically designed to hide them from you. Now, let me show you what the ancient moon map revealed. Because once you see this, everything about why your manifestations work sometimes and fail other times is going to make perfect sense. The lunar cycle has 8 distinct phases, not just new moon and full moon like most people think. 8 phases, and each one has a specific energetic signature, a specific manifestation instruction. The ancients mapped this out with precision. They knew which phase to plant seeds in, which phase to harvest, which phase to start new projects, which phase to release and let go. And they manifested consistently because they were working with a natural code instead of against it. But before I break down each phase, you need to understand geometry of it. Because the moon phases aren't arbitrary. They're mathematical. They're based on the angle between the sun, earth, and moon. And each angle creates a different geometric relationship, which creates a different energetic pattern, which affects manifestation in specific ways. The ancients understood sacred geometry. They knew that triangles amplify energy differently than squares. They knew that certain angles create coherence while others create chaos. And the moon phases are literally geometric angles shifting throughout the cycle. New moon is 0 degrees, a conjunction. Sun and moon align on the same side of Earth. This is unity, singularity, the 0 point. First quarter is 90 degrees, a square. This is tension, challenge, action required. Full moon is 180 degrees, an opposition, maximum polarity, everything illuminated. Last quarter is 270 degrees, another square, release, clearing, letting go. And between these major angles are the subtle phases, the crescents and gibbous moons, each with their own geometric signature. Your ancestors built temples aligned to these angles. Stonehenge, the pyramids, Angkor Wat, these weren't just buildings. They were geometric instruments designed to amplify specific lunar frequencies during specific phases. They were manifestation machines. And the people who built them manifested on levels we can't even comprehend today. They moved stones weighing hundreds of tons with technology we still can't explain. They created structures that aligned perfectly with celestial events thousands of years in advance. They manifested mastery over physical reality. And they did it using lunar timing and sacred geometry. Phase 1, the new moon. This is the 0 point. The reset. This is when you plant your intention into the field, not through desperate wanting, but through clear declaration. The new moon is when the universe says, okay, what are we creating this cycle? You speak it here. You claim it here. You don't beg. You don't hope. You declare, this is happening. And here's what most people get wrong about new moon intentions. They make them too vague. They say things like, I want to be happy. I want abundance. I want love. That's not an intention. That's a wish. An intention is specific, measurable, visceral. You need to feel it in your body when you state it. If it doesn't give you chills, if it doesn't make your heart race a little, if it doesn't feel slightly impossible, it's not big enough. The new moon is also when the veil between your conscious and subconscious mind is thinnest. Your subconscious is running 95% of your reality. Your beliefs, your patterns, your automatic responses, all subconscious. And during the new moon, you have a direct line to reprogram it. This is why new moon intentions work. You're not just speaking to the universe. You're speaking directly to your subconscious. You're giving it new instructions. And if you do this every single month for a year, you've reprogrammed yourself 13 times. That's 13 layers of transformation. That's why people who work with lunar cycles change so fast. Phase 2, the waxing crescent. This is 3.5 days after the new moon. This is when your intention starts taking form in the invisible realm. You won't see results yet, but energetically, things are moving. This is where most people quit. They plant the seed and expect it to grow overnight. But this phase is about trust. Water the seed. Don't dig it up to check if it's growing. The waxing crescent is also when synchronicities start appearing. Small signs, numbers repeating, songs with relevant lyrics playing at the right moment, people mentioning exactly what you were just thinking about. These aren't coincidences. These are confirmations. The field is responding. Your manifestation is in motion, but you have to pay attention. You have to notice. Because if you dismiss the signs, if you rationalize them away, you're telling the universe you don't believe. And the universe always matches your belief. I remember the first time I really paid attention during a waxing crescent. I had set an intention for a new opportunity in my business. 3 days later, I kept seeing the number sequence 1111 everywhere. On clocks, on receipts, on license plates. And I almost ignored it. I almost wrote it off as confirmation bias. But something told me to look up what 1111 meant. And every source said the same thing. New beginnings. Doorways opening. Stay alert for opportunities. 2 days after that, I got an email completely out of the blue from someone wanting to collaborate on exactly what I had intended. That's how the waxing crescent works. It sends scouts. It sends whispers. And if you're listening, you'll know you're on the right path. Phase 3, the first quarter. 7 days after the new moon. This is when resistance shows up. Challenges appear. Old patterns try to pull you back. This isn't failure. This is the universe testing your commitment. Are you serious about this manifestation? Or are you in a fold the moment it gets uncomfortable? The ancients knew this phase was critical. Push through here, and you lock in the manifestation. And let me be clear about what resistance looks like. It's not always external obstacles. Sometimes it's your own mind. Doubt creeping in. Fear of success. Imposter syndrome. That voice that says, "Who do you think you are? You can't do this." People like you don't get things like that. That voice gets loud during the first quarter. Why? Because you're at the geometric angle of tension. 90 degrees. The square. And squares create friction. Friction creates heat. Heat creates transformation. But you have to stay in the fire. You have to push through. This is also when other people might start acting weird around you. Friends who suddenly have negative things to say about your goals. Family members who question your decisions. Colleagues who seem threatened by your progress. It's not personal. It's energetic. You're shifting frequencies. And when you shift, everything around you has to reorganize itself. Some people will rise with you. Others will try to pull you back down to where you were. Not because they're bad people, but because your growth makes them uncomfortable about their stagnation. The first quarter moon shows you who's really in your corner. Pay attention. Phase 4, the waxing gibbous. 10.5 days after new moon. This is refinement. You start seeing signs. Synchronicities increase. Opportunities appear. But they might not look how you expected. This is where you adjust your approach without changing your intention. Stay flexible in the how, but firm in the what. The waxing gibbous is where your manifestation starts taking physical form, but it's still in the assembly phase. Imagine you ordered a package. It's been shipped. It's in transit. You can track it. You know it's coming. But it's not at your door yet. That's waxing gibbous energy. And this is where people make a fatal mistake. They see it's not quite there yet, and they panic. They start doubting. They start looking for backup plans. They start hedging their bets. And the moment you do that, you split your energy. You're no longer fully committed to the original intention. You're now manifesting from fear of it not working instead of certainty that it is working. And fear-based manifestation creates fear-based results. During the waxing gibbous, your job is to prepare. Get ready to receive. If you're manifesting money, set up the bank account. If you're manifesting a relationship, make space in your life for another person. If you're manifesting a new opportunity, update your resume. Clean out your schedule. Create capacity. Act as if it's already done, because energetically it is. It's just completing the journey from the invisible realm to the physical realm. And the more you prepare, the faster it arrives. Phase 5, the full moon. 14.5 days after new moon. Peak energy. Maximum visibility. This is when manifestations either appear in physical form or become undeniably clear that they're coming. The full moon illuminates everything. What's working, what's not, what needs to be released. This is also when your subconscious is most active. Your dreams during the full moon are literal messages from your higher self. The full moon is wild. Emergency rooms report increased activity. Police report more calls. Hospitals report more births. The word lunatic comes from luna, the moon, because people notice that humans act differently during the full moon. More emotional, more erratic, more intense. And that's because the full moon amplifies everything. Your joy gets bigger. Your pain gets bigger. Your clarity gets sharper. Your confusion gets louder. Everything you've been suppressing comes to the surface. And this is actually perfect for manifestation, because the full moon shows you the truth. If your manifestation is aligned, you'll feel expansion, excitement, gratitude. Things will click into place. But if your manifestation was coming from ego, from lack, from trying to prove something, the full moon will expose that too. You'll feel contracted, anxious, frustrated. And that's not a bad thing. That's the universe redirecting you, showing you that this particular desire wasn't actually aligned with your highest good. And you get to choose. Keep forcing it, or let it go and trust that something better is coming. I've had full moons where everything I manifested showed up at once. Money, opportunities, connections, all in a 48-hour window. And I've had full moons where I realized that what I thought I wanted was actually keeping me stuck. And I had to release it. Both types of full moons are powerful. Both types move you forward. You just have to be willing to see what's being shown to you. Phase 6, the waning gibbous. 18 days after the new moon. This is integration. You're grounding the energy. You're making it solid. If your manifestation appeared, you're anchoring it into your reality. If it didn't, you're harvesting the lesson. Either way, you're extracting value. The waning gibbous is the most underrated phase. Everyone pays attention to the new moon and the full moon, but the waning gibbous is where the real magic gets locked in. This is where you take the insights, the wins, the lessons from the full moon, and you integrate them into your identity. You don't just experience the manifestation. You become the person who manifests those things. There's a huge difference. A lot of people manifest something once and then lose it. They get the money and spend it all. They attract a relationship and sabotage it. They land the opportunity and quit. Why? Because they never integrated. They never anchored it into their identity. The waning gibbous is your integration phase. This is when you journal about what worked. You celebrate the wins. You extract the wisdom from the challenges. You rewire your identity to match the new level you've reached. And when you do that, the manifestation becomes permanent. You don't lose it, because it's part of who you are now. Phase 7, the last quarter. 22 days after the new moon. This is release. Let go of what didn't serve you. Forgive. Clear. Make space. You can't bring new things into a cluttered field. The ancients did cleansing rituals during this phase. They burned what needed to go. They cut cords. They closed cycles. The last quarter is another 90-degree angle. Another square. But this one is different from the first quarter. The first quarter square is about pushing through resistance to move forward. The last quarter square is about releasing resistance to make space. Same geometry, different direction, and both are necessary. Most people skip this phase entirely. They go from full moon straight to new moon. They're always focused on what's next, what's coming, what they're calling in, but they never clear out what's old. And then they wonder why their manifestations feel heavy, why they keep attracting the same situations with different faces, why they're stuck in loops. It's because they're trying to plant new seeds in soil that's full of old roots. You have to clear the field first. The last quarter is when you forgive, not because people deserve it, but because you deserve to be free. You forgive the person who betrayed you. You forgive yourself for mistakes. You forgive the situation that didn't work out. You release the grudge, the resentment, the bitterness. And the moment you do, you feel lighter, because you just freed up massive amounts of energy that were locked in the past. And now that energy is available for your next manifestation. Phase 8, the waning crescent. 25.5 days after the new moon. This is rest, surrender, the void before the next new moon. This is when you stop doing and start being. You reflect, you prepare, you get clear on what you're calling in next. Then the cycle starts again. The waning crescent is the dark moon, the hidden moon, the moon you can't see. And in ancient traditions, this was the most sacred phase. This was when the priestesses went into seclusion, when the oracles received visions, when the mystics access the void, because the void isn't empty. The void is full of potential. The void is where all possibilities exist before they collapse into form. And when you rest in the void, when you surrender into darkness, you access infinite creative potential. But we've been taught to fear the void, to fear the dark, to fear rest. We've been taught that productivity is virtue, that hustling is honorable, that rest is lazy. And so we skip the waning crescent entirely. We push through it. We stay busy. We distract ourselves. And then we wonder why we feel disconnected from our intuition, why we feel burnout, why our manifestations feel forced. It's because we're not honoring the rest phase. We're not allowing the void to do its work. I started scheduling nothing during the waning crescent. No calls, no meetings, no content creation. Just rest, walks, baths, sleep, silence. And at first, it felt wrong. Like I was wasting time. Like I should be doing something. But I pushed through that discomfort. And what I discovered was that the waning crescent became my most creative phase. Ideas would download during rest that I could never access while doing. Solutions would appear in the silence. Clarity would emerge from the void. And by the time the new moon arrived, I knew exactly what I was calling in next. Not because I figured it out, because it was revealed to me. That's the map. That's the code. And every ancient civilization used some version of this. The Mayans, the Egyptians, the Babylonians, the indigenous tribes across every continent. They all tracked lunar cycles with obsessive precision. Why? Because it worked. They manifested food, rain, victory, healing, abundance. And they did it consistently because they knew when to act and when to wait. And let's talk about how precise they were. The Mayans didn't just track the moon. They tracked Venus, Mars, Jupiter, all the planets, and they calculated their cycles thousands of years into the future with accuracy that we can barely match today with computers. They had a calendar system so complex, so sophisticated, that modern astronomers are still studying it. And at the center of it all was the moon. 13 moons, 28 days each, 364 days. One day of no time to reset. Perfect mathematical harmony. The Egyptians built a great pyramid with shafts that aligned with specific stars during specific lunar phases. They oriented entire temple complexes based on moonrise and moonset points throughout the year. They held ceremonies on precise moon phases because they knew those were the moments when the veil between worlds was thinnest, when manifestation was most potent, when the gods were listening. The Babylonians created the first lunar calendars that we have written records of. They tracked the moon for agriculture, for warfare, for divination. They knew that planting during a waxing moon yielded bigger crops. They knew that attacking during a waning moon gave them strategic advantage. They knew that making decisions during a full moon brought clarity. And they built an empire using this knowledge. Then 1582 happened. And suddenly, you're trying to manifest on a Tuesday in March. What does that even mean energetically? Nothing. It's arbitrary. The days of the week are named after planets and gods. Sure, but the months are a mess. And that's on purpose. Listen, the Gregorian calendar was implemented during the Counter-Reformation. The Catholic Church was fighting to maintain control over Europe. And one of the most powerful forms of control is controlling how people perceive time. If you control the calendar, you control when people gather, when they celebrate, when they rest, when they work. You control their rhythm. And if you disconnect them from the natural lunar rhythm, you disconnect them from their manifestation power. Before the change, farmers planted by the moon, healers treated patients by the moon, women's cycles synced with the moon. Everyone was plugged into the natural field. After the change, you got standardized time. You got industrialization. You got 9-to-5 jobs that ignore your natural rhythms entirely. You got disconnected. And disconnected people don't manifest. They struggle. They survive. They obey. And here's something they definitely don't want you thinking about. The introduction of artificial light. Because before electricity, humans had no choice but to live by natural light cycles. Sun up, wake up. Sundown, wind down. And the moon was the only light at night. People watched it, tracked it, oriented their lives around it. But then Edison invents the light bulb. And suddenly, you don't need the moon. You don't need to pay attention to it. You can ignore natural light cycles entirely. Work night shifts, stay up until 3 a.m., sleep during the day. Your circadian rhythm gets obliterated. Your pineal gland stops functioning properly, and your connection to lunar frequencies degrades. You think that's accident? You think the invention of artificial light wasn't one of the most effective tools for disconnecting humanity from natural rhythms? Before electric light, people had no choice but to be aware of the moon. After electric light, people can go months without even looking at the sky. And a population that doesn't look at the sky, that doesn't track the cycles, that's asleep to natural law. That population is easy to control. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. There were cultures that refused to adopt the Gregorian calendar. And you know what's wild? Those cultures maintained their manifestation practices way longer than the rest of the world. The Balinese still use a lunar calendar system called the Pawukan. It's 210 days long, and it tracks multiple overlapping cycles. Their entire culture is structured around ceremony and ritual timed to these cycles. And they manifest community, harmony, and abundance in ways that Western culture can't even comprehend. I spent time in Bali a few years ago, and I was blown away by how different the energy felt. Every single day had a ceremony attached to it. Offerings in the morning, prayers at sunset, specific rituals for specific days determined by where they were in multiple overlapping cycles. And the people weren't stressed. They weren't hustling. They were flowing. They were joyful. Their businesses thrived. Their families were connected. Their communities were strong. And it wasn't because they had more resources. It's because they were synchronized with natural time. I asked a priest there why they don't just use a regular calendar like everyone else. Make it simpler. And he looked at me like I was insane. He said, "Why would we use a calendar that disconnects us from the universe? The Pawukan keeps us aligned with the gods, with the ancestors, with the natural flow of energy. To abandon it would be to abandon our power." And I realized that's exactly what happened to Western culture. We abandoned our power the moment we accepted a calendar that severed us from cosmic rhythm. Indigenous tribes across the Americas kept lunar calendars. 13 moons. 13 grandmother moons, they called them. Each moon had a name, a purpose, a teaching. And they lived in sync with the earth because they were tracking the right cycles. Then colonization came, and with it, the Gregorian calendar. And suddenly, indigenous kids were forced into schools that taught them to ignore the moon and follow the clock. You think that's coincidence? You think it's accident that the most oppressed cultures on the planet are the ones who are forcibly disconnected from lunar time? No, it's strategy. Because people who know how to manifest don't stay oppressed. They rise. They thrive. They become ungovernable. The indigenous tribes in North America had it down to a science. The Ojibwe had 13 moons with names like the moon of the crusted snow, the moon of the flowers, the harvest moon. Each name reflected what was happening in nature during that cycle, and they lived accordingly. They didn't fight nature. They worked with it, and they thrived for thousands of years until colonizers showed up and told them their calendar was primitive, their ways were savage, and forced them to adopt the Gregorian system. Within a few generations, that ancestral knowledge was nearly wiped out, and the people who had lived in abundance for millennia were suddenly impoverished, diseased, dependent. That's what happens when you're disconnected from the source code. Let me tell you about the number 13 and why they demonized it. The Gregorian calendar has 12 months, but the natural lunar year has 13 moons, 13 complete cycles. So, where did the 13th moon go? They erased it. And they made 13 unlucky. Friday the 13th. Fear it. 13 at the dinner table. Bad luck. 13 on a building. Skip the floor. Why? Because 13 is the number of the divine feminine. 13 moons. 13 menstrual cycles in a year for women in their natural state. 13 is completion in the lunar system, and they couldn't have you accessing that power. 12 is the number control. 12 months, 12 hours on a clock, 12 inches in a foot, 12 jurors, 12 apostles. 12 is division. 12 is structure. 12 is the grid. 13 is the break in the grid. 13 is the escape hatch. 13 is a return to natural law. So they made you afraid of it. And look at what they did to Friday the 13th specifically. Friday was named after Freya, the Norse goddess of love, fertility, and magic. Friday was her sacred day, a day of feminine power. And the 13th, the number of the divine feminine. So Friday the 13th is literally the most powerful feminine day on the calendar. Double feminine energy. And they made it the unluckiest day. They made you fear the exact day when feminine manifestation power is at its peak. You think that's random? No, that's psychological warfare. In ancient traditions, Friday the 13th was celebrated. Priestesses gathered. Rituals were performed. Magic was worked. Because they knew this was a portal day. A day when the feminine frequency was amplified. A day when manifestation came easier. And the patriarchal systems couldn't have women accessing that power. So they demonized it, made it into a horror movie franchise, conditioned you to feel anxious when you see that date on the calendar. And most people have no idea why they're afraid of it. They just are, because the programming goes that deep. And here's what blows my mind. Once you start living by lunar cycles again, everything shifts. I tested this myself. I stopped planning my life by the Gregorian calendar. I started tracking the moon. New moon, I set intentions. First quarter, I push through resistance. Full moon, I celebrate or release. Last quarter, I clear and let go. And I'm telling you, my manifestation started landing with precision, not sometimes. Consistently. Things I'd been trying to force for months suddenly clicked into place when I timed them with the right lunar phase. And it wasn't magic in the mystical sense. It was alignment. I was finally working with the field instead of against it. Your body already knows this rhythm. Women, you feel it in your cycle. Men, you feel it in your energy levels, your creativity, your drive. It ebbs and flows. But we've been trained to override it. Push through. Stay consistent. Same energy every day. That's not natural. That's programming. And it's why you're exhausted. You're fighting the tide instead of riding it. And let's talk about women's cycles specifically, because this is where the lunar connection becomes undeniable. In studies of women living together without artificial light, their menstrual cycles sync with each other and with the moon. The natural state is to ovulate at the full moon and menstruate at the new moon. Full moon, peak fertility, maximum creative energy. New moon, shedding, release, going inward. It's a perfect mirror of the lunar cycle. But modern women are so disconnected that their cycles are all over the place. Irregular, painful, out of sync. Why? Artificial light, birth control, stress, and disconnection from lunar awareness. When women sync with the moon, their cycles regulate. Hormones balance. PMS decreases. Fertility increases. And their manifestation power skyrockets. Because they're tapping into the primal feminine frequency that's been encoded in their DNA for thousands of generations. But the medical industry doesn't want you knowing this. They want you thinking your cycle is a problem to be managed with pharmaceuticals. They want you disconnected from your body's natural wisdom, because a woman who's in sync with her cycle, and the moon is ungovernable. She knows when to create and when to rest. She knows when to push and when to surrender. She's not operating on the industrial clock. She's operating on cosmic time. And that's dangerous to systems built on control. The moon doesn't care if it's Monday or Thursday. The moon doesn't care if it's January or September. The moon moves through its phases regardless. And your cellular structure responds to those phases whether you're conscious of it or not. So, the question is, are you going to keep using a corrupted calendar that keeps you disconnected? Or are you going to reclaim the ancient map that actually works? Now, let me show you how to use this practically. Because I'm not just here to tell you what they took from you. I'm here to show you how to take it back. First, start tracking the moon. Get a lunar calendar app. There are dozens of them. Find one that shows you the 8 phases, not just new and full. You need to see the quarters and the crescents. Watch the cycle for 1 full month without changing anything. Just observe. Notice your energy levels. Notice when inspiration hits. Notice when you feel resistance. Notice when things flow easily and when everything feels like pushing a boulder uphill. You'll start seeing the pattern. And here's what you're going to notice. Your sleep patterns correlate with moon phases. Your productivity correlates with moon phases. Your mood correlates with moon phases. Your relationships correlate with moon phases. Everything you thought was random actually has a pattern. And once you see the pattern, you can work with it instead of fighting it. Keep a journal for 1 full lunar cycle. Every day, rate your energy level from 1 to 10. Rate your mood. Note what you accomplished. Note any synchronicities or weird occurrences. And at the end of the cycle, review it. You're going to see clear patterns emerging. You're going to see that you're naturally more creative during certain phases, more introspective during others, more social during some, more withdrawn during others. And none of it is random. It's all the moon. Next, align your intentions with the new moon. Every new moon, take 15 minutes. Sit down. Get clear. What are you manifesting this cycle? Not 10 things. 1 to 3 maximum. Write them down as if they've already happened. I am, I have, I experience. Not I want, not I hope. Certainty. And make them specific. Don't just say, I want more money. Say, I have received $5,000 from an unexpected source. Don't say, I want a relationship. Say, I am in a loving partnership with someone who values communication and growth. Don't say, I want a new job. Say, I am working in a position that utilizes my skills and pays me what I'm worth. Specific, present tense, definite, then read them out loud. Speak them into existence. Your voice is a frequency generator. When you speak your intentions during the new moon, you're literally encoding them into the field. You're programming reality. And the more emotion you put into it, the more powerful the encoding. So don't just read them monotone. Feel them. Get excited. Let your body respond. Because your body is the antenna that broadcasts the signal. Then, during the waxing phases, take action. First quarter especially. This is when you push. This is when you do the uncomfortable thing. Make the call. Send the email. Have the conversation. Launch the project. The energy is rising. Use it. And here's the key. The action you take during the waxing moon should be aligned with your new moon intention. Don't just take random action. Take intentional action. If you set an intention for financial abundance, the waxing moon is when you pitch the client, launch the product, ask for the raise. If you set an intention for a relationship, the waxing moon is when you go on the dates, have the vulnerable conversations, show up authentically. If you set an intention for health, the waxing moon is when you commit to the workout routine, prep the healthy meals, schedule the appointments. Aligned action. That's what creates manifestation. Full moon evaluate. Did it happen? Is it happening? What showed up? What needs to be released? The full moon will show you everything. Don't ignore what it reveals. If something isn't working, the full moon will make it obvious. Let it go and be honest with yourself during the full moon. This is not the time for delusion or denial. This is the time for truth. If your manifestation showed up, celebrate it. Acknowledge it. Give thanks. Anchor it in. But if it didn't, or if something showed up that you don't actually want, the full moon is showing you that you need to course correct. Maybe the intention wasn't aligned. Maybe you were manifesting from ego instead of truth. Maybe there's a belief or pattern that needs to be clear before this can come in. The full moon reveals it all. Your job is to look at it without judgment and make the necessary adjustments. Waning phases, clear and rest. Last quarter, do a release ritual. Burn a list of what you're letting go. Delete old contacts. Clean your space. Make room. Waning crescent. Rest. Journal. Reflect. Prepare for the next cycle. The release ritual is important. Don't skip it. Write down everything you're releasing. Old beliefs, toxic relationships, failed projects, resentments, fears, doubts. Write it all down. Then burn it safely in a fireproof container. Watch it turn to ash. And as it burns, feel the weight lifting. Feel yourself becoming lighter. That's energetic clearing happening in real time. You're literally transmuting dense energy into smoke and releasing it. And the space you create by doing this becomes available for new manifestations to enter. Do this for 3 months, 3 full lunar cycles, and watch what happens. I'm telling you, your manifestations will start landing differently, faster, cleaner, with less resistance. Why? Because you're finally using the map. Now, let's talk about why they specifically chose 1582 to change the calendar. Because the timing wasn't random. This was the height of the European witch trials. Between 1580 and 1630, tens of thousands of people, mostly women, were executed for witchcraft. And what were they actually doing? They were healers, midwives, herbalists, and they all worked by the moon. They knew which moon phase to harvest plants for medicine. They knew which phase to assist births. They knew which phase to perform healings. They were the ones who held the lunar map, and they were systematically murdered. Then, right in the middle of this, the calendar changes. You think that's coincidence? No, it's erasure. Kill the people who know the map, then change the map so nobody else can find it. The witch trials weren't about religion. They were about power. Specifically, about taking power away from people who knew how to manifest outside the system. A woman who can heal using plants and lunar timing doesn't need a doctor. A community that grows food by moon cycles doesn't need industrial agriculture. People who manifest using natural law don't need the church or the state to grant them permission. So, they silenced the knowledge keepers. They changed the calendar. They made moon worship pagan and dangerous. And they replaced it with a system that keeps you tired, confused, and disconnected. And it worked. For 400 years, it worked. But here's the thing. The moon doesn't care what calendar you use. The moon keeps cycling. The field keeps responding. And your DNA remembers. You have ancestors who live by the moon. Their knowledge is encoded in you. You just have to wake it up. I started noticing something wild once I started living by lunar time. Other people started acting differently around me. Not because I told them what I was doing, but because my field changed. I was operating on a different frequency. And frequency is contagious. People either sync up with you or they fall away. Both are good. You want to be surrounded by people who are awake, not asleep. Manifestation isn't about forcing. It's about timing. You can have the perfect intention, the perfect action plan, the perfect energy. But if you're doing it the wrong phase, you're swimming upstream. The universe has a rhythm. And when you sync with that rhythm, everything gets easier. Think about nature. Trees don't grow at the same rate all year. They have seasons. Animals don't hunt with the same intensity every day. They follow cycles. The ocean doesn't keep the tide high constantly. It ebbs and flows. Everything in nature operates in cycles. Except you. You've been told to be the same every single day. Same energy, same output, same results. That's not natural. That's control. Look at migrating birds. They don't just fly whenever they feel like it. They wait for specific atmospheric conditions, specific magnetic field alignments. They're reading signals from the Earth and the cosmos that we've forgotten how to read. And they navigate thousands of miles with precision because they're attuned to natural cycles. Bears don't decide to hibernate based on a calendar date. They respond to the changing light, the dropping temperature, the internal biological clock that's synced with Earth's rhythms. Salmon return to spawn based on lunar cycles. Wolves hunt more successfully during specific moon phases. Coral reefs spawn en masse during full moons. The entire natural world is synchronized with cosmic cycles. Only humans have been convinced we're separate from it. The Gregorian calendar is a solar calendar, 12 months based on the sun's position. And sure, the sun is important, but the sun doesn't change. The sun rises and sets on a predictable path. The moon changes every single night. Waxing, waning, dark, bright. The moon is transformation. The sun is stability. You need both, but we've been given only the solar calendar and told that's enough. It's not. Ancient Egypt used both. A solar calendar for civic life and a lunar calendar for religious and magical practices. They understood you need the structure of solar time and the flow of lunar time. One without the other creates imbalance. We've been living in solar-only time for centuries. And look at the result. Burnout, exhaustion, disconnection, mental health crises. Nobody can keep up with the pace because the pace ignores natural rhythms. The solar calendar gives you the framework. The lunar calendar gives you the flow. Together, they create mastery. But they took away half the equation and expected you to function normally. It's like trying to breathe with only one lung. Possible, but you're never operating at full capacity. Here's something most people don't know. Your pineal gland, the so-called third eye, is photosensitive. It responds to light. And the moon's light affects it differently than the sun's light. The pineal gland produces melatonin, which regulates your sleep. But it also produces DMT, the most powerful visionary compound in your brain. And lunar light, especially during the full moon, affects pineal gland activity. This is why people report vivid dreams during the full moon, why psychic experiences increase, why intuition is heightened. Your pineal gland is receiving lunar data. And when you're aware of the cycle, you can work with it. You can intentionally amplify your intuition during the full moon. You can receive guidance. You can access information that isn't available during other phases. But if you're not tracking the moon, you're missing it. You're getting the data, but you don't know how to interpret it. So it just feels like randomness. Some nights you sleep great. Some nights you don't. Some days you're creative. Some days you're not. It feels chaotic. But it's not. It's cyclical. You're just not reading the cycle. The pineal gland is also calcified in most modern humans. Fluoride in the water supply, processed foods, artificial light. All of it contributes to calcification of the pineal gland. And a calcified pineal gland can't receive lunar frequencies properly. It's like trying to tune into a radio station with a broken antenna. You might get static bits and pieces, but not the full signal. And that's by design. Because a population with calcified pineal glands is a population that's disconnected from intuition, from higher guidance, from cosmic intelligence. And a disconnected population is easy to manipulate. Decalcifying your pineal gland is another conversation, but it involves clean water, specific supplements, sun gazing, and yes, tracking the moon. Because even with a calcified pineal gland, consistent lunar awareness starts to wake it back up. It's like exercising an atrophied muscle. At first, you don't feel much. But over time, the connection strengthens. Your dreams get clearer. Your intuition gets sharper. Synchronicities increase. You start receiving downloads and insights. Your manifestation power amplifies. All because you're reactivating the hardware that was always there. Let me tell you what happened when I started aligning my business with the lunar cycle. I used to launch programs whenever I felt like it. Random days, random months. Sometimes they'd do great. Sometimes they'd flop. No consistency. Then I started launching only during waxing moons. Specifically, right after the first quarter, when momentum is building. And tracking my results, my conversion rates went up. Not a little. Significantly. Same offer, same audience, different timing. And suddenly, people were ready to buy. Then I tested the opposite. I launched something during a waning moon just to see. Dead. Crickets. Nobody wanted it. Why? Because waning moon energy is about releasing, not acquiring. People don't want to buy during that phase. They want to let go. It's not the right energy. But I would have never known that if I was just following the Gregorian calendar. Now, I plan everything by the moon. Content creation during waxing moons. Launches during waxing moons. Clearing and admin work during waning moons. Rest during the dark moon. And my business flows. I'm not forcing anymore. I'm not hustling. I'm dancing with the rhythm. And here's what's wild. The more I do this, the more I notice other people who are doing it too. You can feel it. You can tell when someone is synced with lunar time versus solar time. Solar time people are rigid. They're stressed. They're pushing. Lunar time people are flowing. They're calm. They're manifesting easily. It's a different frequency entirely. The elite know this, by the way. You think it's accident that major financial decisions happen around specific moon phases? The stock market follows lunar cycles. Google it. There are studies. Trading volume and market volatility correlate with moon phases. The people moving billions of dollars are tracking the moon. They're just not telling you to do it. They want you following the Gregorian calendar, living in solar-only time, disconnected from the manifestation map. Because disconnected people are predictable. They're controllable. They're struggling. And struggling people don't threaten power structures. J.P. Morgan, one of the wealthiest men in history, had a personal astrologer. He didn't make major financial moves without consulting planetary and lunar positions. And he's quoted as saying, "Millionaires don't use astrology, billionaires do." They know. The ultra-wealthy know that cosmic timing matters. They just don't want you knowing it. Because if you knew it, if you used it, you'd be operating on their level. And they can't have that. Look at product launches from major corporations, movie releases, political announcements. They're all timed around astrological and lunar events. They hire consultants who track this. They spend millions on timing strategies. And then they tell the general public that astrology is pseudoscience, that tracking the moon is silly. That manifestation is wishful thinking. They gaslight you while they're using these exact tools to maintain their power and wealth. But once you plug back into lunar time, you become unpredictable. You start manifesting in ways that don't make logical sense. Opportunities appear out of nowhere. The right people show up at the right time. Money flows in unexpected ways. And it's not luck. It's alignment. You're finally working with the code instead of against it. So here's what I want you to do. Tonight, check what phase the moon is in. Right now, pull out your phone and look it up. If it's a new moon or close to it, set an intention. Write it down. Speak out loud. If it's a full moon, evaluate. What's working? What's not? What needs to be released? If it's a quarter moon, take action or let go depending on whether it's waxing or waning. Just start. One cycle. See what happens. Track your energy. Track your results. And I promise you, you're going to notice things you've never noticed before. You're going to see that your life has always been following this rhythm. You just weren't aware of it. The calendar was changed to hide the map, but the map still exists. The moon is still there. The cycles are still cycling. And you can choose right now to stop living by a corrupted system and start living by natural law. This isn't superstition. This is physics. Electromagnetic fields, gravitational pull, cellular response. Your body knows. Your ancestors knew. And now you know. They can change a calendar, but they can't change the moon. And once you realize that, you become sovereign. You take back your time. You take back your power. You take back your ability to manifest on your terms, not theirs. This is the knowledge they silence people for. This is the map they tried to erase. And it's yours now. Use it.